Wow, what a chapter of Boku no Hero Academia. Let us just let this chapter actually sink in. Now, before we actually talk about it, can we just, congratulate? We've been here for 3 years. Boku no Hero has been here for 3 years. Isn't that crazy? I remember when I first got into this series, it just seemed like yesterday. This this greatness of a series has been here for 3 years, and I just hope it can go on as long as it can. I don't want it to be dragged out. I want Horikoshi to go. I want him to go out for as long as he can, and but I don't want him to stretch it. I want him to complete the series, and I want him to be satisfied and look back on it and be like, you know what? I'm proud of that. I did a good job. That's how I want Boku no Hero to be. So I hope it's here for many of the years to come. I really do see Boku no Hero. I think a lot of us see it as a long-running shonen. A lot of us see that potential in it. And hopefully it is, because this is a ruby. We've got a diamond on us, people. We've got a diamond on us. So let's actually talk about this chapter. And can I just say how different this chapter actually was? Now, when I want to talk about what I mean by how different it was, first of all, I don't think any of us saw it coming, and I know in the sense of we didn't see it coming now. We didn't literally think, okay, this is gonna be it, right bang in the middle before Fat Gum's gonna release that punch. We didn't think it was gonna happen right there. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I really am not. My first initial reaction, I was just like, wait, really? We're getting an origin chapter now? I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit saddened, because the whole week I was hyped to see Fat Gum. I was hyped to see him, I was just so excited to see the fight continue. I really didn't think we were gonna see Kirishima's origin chapter, and I genuinely didn't think we were gonna see it in this fight, to be honest. I really didn't think it. I thought from the last chapter, Kirishima's little story arc that he had was done and dusted, because I thought when he came in, that was a little win for him. So, Horikoshi did well for that character, but no, he was just like, I'm not done. And I'm so happy he wasn't, because this chapter was awesome. It really was. Now, I may be incorrect. I'm just going out on a limb right now. Basically, the title of the chapter, it said Red Riot, but on the actual page, it said Red Riot 1. Now, that makes me think that obviously next chapter, even judging by the end of this chapter, it seems like next chapter as well is going to be, going into Kirishima's origin again. And can I tell you why I'm so happy about this? Not just because we're going into, not because Kirishima's origin chapter is 2 parts or 3. We don't know how many parts. Probably 2 parts series, 2-part chapter kind of story, which is pretty awesome. Because in the cast of Boku no Hero Academia, how many people in class 1A? Is it 20 or 21? Something along the lines of that, around that kind of number. Basically, Horikoshi's got a massive cast. Now, sooner or later, we will probably be getting origin chapters on these guys. We will be getting showcased on them. And throughout the series, Horikoshi's done an amazing job in doing it. We haven't gotten whole chapters dedicated to every single student so far, but sometimes you don't really need that, For we've had some chapters where, it's kind of zeroed in and focused in on a character. For example, Koda. That was during the exam arc when you fight against the teachers around. That was in chapter 50s, 60s, stuff like that. Now, the whole chapter wasn't dedicated to Koda, but it was doing, I believe it was Koda and Jiro Jack. Them two in that chapter, and they were fighting against President Mike. Now, the whole chapter wasn't dedicated to Koda, but there was a couple of pages, and so when Jiro was psyching him up, basically saying, "Oh, I know you're afraid of insects, but please can you talk to them?" Stuff like that. I'm saying Horikoshi's done a great job on basically not creating a character and just doing nothing with it. I've realized that he hasn't done that. Horikoshi, when he creates characters, they're useful. Now, I'm not saying you see them every single chapter, but they really are necessary to the plot, or they're necessary to that certain story arc at the time. He doesn't create useless characters, and I don't think there is actually a useless character in Boku no Hero. Now, obviously, that can just be up to debate. For example, I could say, look, President Mike's a useless character, he's irrelevant. And then you could be like, but he's not, look at all the things he's done. So, that could just be a debate kind of thing. That could be, that's just probably my opinion. I genuinely think every character that Horikoshi has made, he hasn't just made and never used them. That's my opinion. You may disagree, and it is what it is. But what I'm saying is, how awesome is it that the fact that you'd think we'd get bored. You'd think we'd get fed up of being like, wait, we've got another origin chapter, and this is the point which I'm trying to get across. Every time a Horikoshi does an origin chapter, it's different. Yes, the characters are different, but they're so unique. They really are. And it's so awesome by the whole fact is this is a series of quirks, and yes, externally they are unique in their abilities, but also internally, with their personalities, with their thoughts, their fears, and everything what they think about. So it really is cool, and this is why I think Kirishima hinted this origin chapter, this origin story arc, him as a whole is very different to all the other origin chapters. When I was reading it, I was thinking back on like Todoroki's or like Ida's or Bakugo's. It's very different. It really is, and yes, there's similarities of Kirishima to Sun Eater. Kirishima really does struggle with confidence. He does struggle with, he is insecure. And it really is awesome. Before I talk about Kirishima's character, I just gotta say one more thing, and it's the structure. Now, I said it at the start of the video. At first, I was thinking, why are we getting Origin Chapter right now? How weird is that? But listen, people, how cool is this? Think about it. Typically, in other manga series and shonen series, the flashback is before the big thing. The flashback, typically, if this was another series, this flashback that we're going through with Kirishima, this would have probably be done before Kirishima jumped in and blocked the attacks from Rapper. Because logically and like stylistically, if you look at it in writing as well, you'd kind of, the flashback will kind of contribute to the climax. It will contribute to you being like emotionally attached. But wait, before I get to the but, you'd be emotionally attached and it'd be like a climax. So when Kirishima comes in to do that massive attack, everyone's just like, oh my gosh, look how awesome, how amazing Kirishima is. But we don't have to do that because Horikoshi is such an awesome writer where he throughout the series, we've been connected to these characters. So you get what I mean? So I'm not saying that this is a massive rule of thumb that why it's always in every single other manga series and shonen. This is just my observation, to be honest, my analysis. But the fact is, in other series when they do, you know, the flashback then the climax, most times when you do that, it's always very arc isolated. Meaning, yeah, that guy has one awesome moment in that arc, and you really don't see him for some other time. You really don't see him like for the rest of the series. Horikoshi ain't like that, you know? So, in those other series where maybe you're just connected to him at that moment in time, it's different with Boku no Hero Academia. I'm sure that a lot of you guys would have been connected with Kirishima from the start, not only because of screen time, but also because of the investment that Horikoshi has poured into these characters. You know, I say this a lot, there's never a wasted panel in Boku no Hero. Honestly, like even in some panels, these guys, they'll be talking to themselves or they'll be thinking about something in like small writing, stuff like that. Those little interactions, it really does go the long mile. It really does contribute, you know, to giving us a really cool feel for these characters. It makes it more realistic and it helps us to be connected. So we are already connected with Kirishima. So when Kirishima jumped out last chapter, we were like, awesome guy. How amazing was that? We didn't need the flashback before to help contribute. You know what I mean? You get it. So the point is why I'm so excited that Horikoshi does it afterwards. Because realistically, that's kind of how things work, you know? Like, sometimes, especially with this chapter, the whole theme, I'm not going to say this is the whole theme about Boku no Hero, but it really is important. You know, the whole thing about, I jumped out even before I'm realizing, you know, everyone remembers that. That's what Deku did at the start of the series. He jumped out to try and save Bakugo. He even did it, like, when they were like kids, when Bakugo like fell in the pond or something and Deku jumped out to help him, stuff like that, you know? The whole point how you're instinctually heroic, you can't help it, you're not even thinking. I see someone in a car's coming, I instinctually run out to try and save her, you know what I mean? And that's what's been at the forefront of Boku no Hero, you know, that's what these characters kind of have. But the point is, not all characters think like that. Not all characters are brave enough to think like that. And Kirishima's one of them. He says it in this chapter. He's like, why am I not moving? The utter opposite, the antithesis to Deku. And Deku was like, why am I moving? You see what I mean? Now, I'm not saying that's a comment on how, you know, Deku's going to be a better hero than Kirishima. No, not at all. I'm just saying that I think, in a series of heroics, that humanity has to your feelings and your fears and just your base emotions play a much larger role. You see what I mean? Otherwise, because you see it, I think, I don't know if this was in an interview, maybe I'm just making it up. Actually, I think I'm making it up. An observation of Boku no Hero. It's a heroic a hero kind of series. Now, with heroes, some of them are a little bit flat, you know. Some heroes, they just don't have any depth. They're just awesome because they're awesome. They're just strong because they're strong. You don't see their fears. You don't see, oh, I'm afraid to do this, but I do it anyway. And that's why Horikoshi, from the start of this series, he focused in on it so much with All Might when he said, I put this smile on to hide my fears. You know, because it makes it more relatable. Now, Kirishima is one of those guys which we all love because Kirishima is relatable as hell. Now, the fact is he's scared. This is why, even so, this chapter was a bit shorter than usual. It was quite powerful. It really was. It was kind of like short but sweet, like very succinct. And that's what's awesome about it, because Kirishima, like, the man was afraid. He didn't go out, but he, in present time, he did. So it shows you that that's character development in itself, that he, regardless of his fears, he did go out and, you know, he did go out and kind of save, not save the day, but you know what I mean. You know, he went out and tried to help. Now, what is kind of interesting is the fact is he did it, yet he still doubts himself. So even though he still created heroic acts, he still doubts himself, which just shows you throughout the whole series. And it makes you wonder, every time Kirishima has done something heroic, does he think of himself heroic, or does he think of himself as, I'm just trying to keep pace, I'm just trying to catch up with everyone else who's so much better than I? Now, I think maybe this will be delved into in the coming chapters. But you know, Kirishima really is an interesting character. At first, at face value, he looks like a manly guy. At second value, he just seems, maybe he's just putting that whole manly thing as a facade because he really is afraid. But when you go even deeper, I feel like I think it's more complex. I think it's more complicated than that. I don't think he's just afraid. And because the fact is, if he's just afraid, yeah, he overcomes it many times in the series, but he still doubts himself to it. So I don't know. I feel like he's very similar to Sun Eater. He really is. But yeah, I feel like I don't really know much. I don't know. I'll have to read more chapters. The more future chapters, maybe I'll understand Kirishima more as the series progresses. But enough from that, because this video is getting rather long. The rock villain, man. The rock villain. Okay, this is so cool, because this just literally validates my point of how I'm saying Horikoshi doesn't make characters unnecessarily. Now, this rock villain, if you're not unaware, to be honest, you probably are aware of how pretty much every other YouTuber has been saying so. This villain was introduced in chapter 59 of chapter 57. Now, this was when, after the Stain arc, Stain was impacting villains across society, and they began to, you know, join the League of the Villain of the Villain Alliance. What was I thinking? League of Villains? My mind. Villain Alliance. It was because Stain was basically a poster boy for the Villain Alliance. People were running to it, and we know from that chapter, you know, Shigaraki weren't so happy about that. You know what? I may need to read that chapter again, because that's quite important to the Villain Alliance. I'm gonna have to read that after this. Either way, so yeah, you know, all the villains coming in, and you see a whole panel of these villains that are coming in. Dabby, Spinner, and there was a villain. There was like a guy, like a rock, like a dinosaur kind of guy, and everyone was wondering, who is he? And we've been waiting like 2 years, and he's finally here. Now, I'm not gonna, you know, like theorycraft and all that kind of stuff, but I think it'll be pretty cool if this guy is Kirishima's endgame villain. I think it'll just be awesome. Maybe even Mina as well. Now, I didn't really talk much about Mina in this review, but I think it's awesome how Mina was in Kirishima's backstory. And why it's really cool is because for a backstory which centers on a man's shyness and insecurity, and basically not being in the limelight, not being on the front stage, but instead being in the background and no one seeing him, it's kind of interesting how Mina kinda takes the stage on Kirishima's backstory. Now, a lot of people are saying that is a comedic effect, like saying, oh, lol, you know, I'm here to be reading a backstory on Kirishima, but instead I get it on Mina. But it's kind of interesting, don't you think? On the backstory, focusing in on shyness and not being out in front of the crowd, how someone takes the light away from it. and that's Mina. But I'm not saying that, you know, all focus was on Mina. I just thought it was really cool just to see them. And I'd like to see more interactions about them. Now that they've been to the same school. I'd like to see more interactions, you know, with Mina and Kirishima. I think that'd be pretty cool. But you know what, guys, that's enough for me. This chapter, I really did enjoy it. Actually, there was a lot to talk about. But yeah, pretty much I'm gonna end off here because I think one of the things I think would be really awesome if this rock guy was Kirishima's end villain. How interesting was it that he said, you know, everything I do is for the Lord? So we've got like a religious aspect to this character as well. So I don't know, is he kind of like he only does things if it's a justifiable act kind of thing? I think it'll be pretty cool. But if this is Horikoshi hinting or foreshadowing an end game boss kind of fight between Kirishima and his villain, that would be awesome. It really would be. So guys, that's enough for me. Please tell me your thoughts in the comments below. What were your opinions about this chapter? Did you actually think differently now, maybe even watching this review, thinking actually, you know what, maybe that flashback was rightly placed, maybe it was best placed? Now I know some of you guys, even me personally, a little bit, I did want to see Fat Gum, but I'm satisfied from this chapter. And you know what, I'm kind of alright. I found it a little bit weird at first how it started. The first page was pretty much Fat Gum, but you know what, it's cool, it really is, because I do think, now there are some fears about maybe, you know, our excitement for Fat Gum's not going to be as high, but I kind of doubt it because I think all of us are still hyped for that. So yeah, I'm going to end it on there. So please tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Peace out, guys, and goodbye.